Hello, everyone. It's 11 o'clock, so let's get this going. As most of you know, I'm Bill Corriston. I'm co-chair of the Resident Safety Committee, and a couple of months ago, I was shopping over at the First Hill food. What do we call it here? Food. Farmers market. Thank you. These senior moments are happening more often. Anyway, I saw a booth over there that said Seattle Emergency Communication Hub. And I said, well, what's that? The safety committee might be interested in that. So I went over and I actually, at that time, I met Cindy and Jackie, who are here today, who will give the presentation. And subsequent to that, we invited them to a safety committee meeting to give us kind of a lowdown on what the hubs are all about, because I'd never heard about Seattle Emergency Communication Hubs. Have any of you heard about those? Okay, we have a couple. Good. Okay, so when they gave their presentations, we really learned a lot, I thought, and so we decided we'd bring it to a larger audience, and this is sort of step one. After this, we'll be working with Brian Holtz and seeing how we can incorporate this into our overall emergency response. And you'll be seeing lots of things from the safety committee about what we're doing. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce Cindy Barker and Jackie on. Cindy is I'll get this wrong probably, but she coordinates the Seattle Emergency Communication Hubs, the network. And Jackie is what I say, coordinating? Yeah, so she's coordinating the First Hill Emergency Hub, and which is just in the process of being constituted. So there, I'll just open this up to Cindy.
I'm always tech challenged and I talk with my hands, so I'll have to follow the microphone. So I actually live in West Seattle, and we are part of as he said, a network of these places called hubs, Seattle Emergency Communication Hubs, which are located throughout Seattle. We have 60 of them with active teams in neighborhoods, because what we think our role will be is in the first hours and days after a disaster, we're the ones in the neighborhood with our neighbors. And so we'll talk a little bit about how that works in the city and why we felt that there was a need for somebody right in your neighborhood to know your neighborhood and know who's vulnerable and what needs to be done until the city can come. Because we have 850,000 people now. That's a lot of folks to deal with should we have major disasters. So we're going to just talk today about being prepared for disasters in general, and then we'll talk a little bit at the end. Jackie will describe the hub and where she is in getting that set up. So 2 hands working together. So, the agenda that we're going to go through today is really talking about the hazards we've got here in Seattle and what those are about, why it's so important to support each other, a thing we call the preparedness pyramid that helps you kind of visualize the layers of what it's going to be like in a disaster and who helps who. Vertical communities are what we call you. You live in towers. You're not like much of Seattle in its single family spread out neighborhoods. So we call those vertical communities. But you're a community, as I've heard from those of you who came in, all the activities, all the energy, all the connectiveness you guys have, you're a strong community. That's a good start. And then we'll talk about the Seattle Emergency Hubs. And I forgot to change. I don't know why this didn't change to First Hill Hub update. So what are the situations that we might face here in Seattle? We have a department, an Office of Emergency Management, who does a biannual assessment of what are the hazards that are most impactful and present in Seattle. So here are the top 5, and I should have maybe made you guess, right? It's a combination of what is the impact going to be? So earthquake is huge, but it doesn't occur very often, right? Last one was, 1700 and Nisqually, but the last devastating one was 1700, but we're coming into the window where that might occur again. And then it's layered also with, we get severe winter weather almost every year now, and it has impact. So that's why it's number 2. The first one will be really devastating in terms of the impact on the population. The second one gets raised up because of its frequency and its increasing frequency. Excessive wind is the third one because of its impact on power. Cyber incidents, also its impact on power. Power is a big thing. Third is power outages, just, whatever caused it. And not just the 2-hour one, but the 2-week one. So in West Seattle, we had part of what started the hubs was we had a power outage that in parts of West Seattle, we were out without power for 2 weeks. And that was a big lesson. A lot of people of how, this was really, 2007 was before everybody depended on the device in front of you for information, But it was really clear that information is really critical and you can't get it when the power's out. So I mentioned that we're going to talk about a preparedness pyramid. And this lets us kind of understand how the city is organized. Almost all societies are divided up like this. First in the preparedness pyramid is you and your family. And when you and your family are thinking about how can I be prepared for a disaster, so this is inside your room, do you have enough food or do you know where the food is located? Even more importantly, do you know where you can get water? Because typically you can go 2 to 3 weeks without food. You cannot go that long without water. It's like 3 days and your body starts misbehaving. So food, water, for those of us of a certain age, medication is a big deal. There will not be pharmacies open when there's power outages. And I don't know what your pharmacy situation is if you have your own in here or you're at the whim of the public ones. But I knew my Rite Aid would not open until they had power because they could not process the prescriptions correctly. There's a lot of federal mandates on the type of drugs, and they could not operate without a security system, which was powered by the power. So we knew that if there was power out, pharmacies were not going to open right away. And then the last thing about you and your family is, where are you going to be able to shelter? Are you comfortable in your room? Will your building make it? Are you going to have to evacuate to a nearby church or shelter the city has maybe open? So those are the considerations, having a plan for you individually to get it through. And we'll be able to have some time at the end to talk about, what's the best way to do that or how you could do that. But we're just going to continue to go through kind of like the generalities for right now. So the next thing is when we talk about preparedness is if you're okay and you have, you've checked yourself and you're still alive and you think you're going to make it through, you're going to want to talk to your neighbors. So in a single family neighborhood, we're talking about maybe 2 blocks that they have created a group, and it's called usually Seattle Neighbors Actively Prepare. It's a formal group that says, we know where the nurses live on our block. We've mapped where all the gas shutoff valves are. We know where we've got maybe joint supplies stored for our blocks. You in the building here, we're talking like floors, right? So the equivalent is maybe 1 or 2 floors. And this is where your safety committee works on these sort of planning. So that is where you start looking out for each other, where you go, dang, I was just going to go to the store to get something and I didn't make it, but maybe my neighbor has it and will share with me. Or I've cut myself and I'm not going to go over to the hospital, which is kind of getting overrun, but maybe there's a nurse or I know where I'm going to go within my floor to quickly get that, taken care of. So you start to share resources and look out for each other. And often especially in single family neighborhoods, you have people who have become hermits. You know, we have a lot of that in today's world. They don't leave their house very often. People don't know them. But at least if you know that Mrs. Smith has mobility problems and is not likely to come out, somebody can go to the door and check on her, right? So that is the purpose of knowing your neighbors and thinking about what you're going to do to talk to each other and be ready to go. And then the last piece is the physical considerations in your building. You live in a building with elevators. So what's going to happen when somebody who's in a wheelchair can't use the elevator that's not working? How will people support each other in that? Questions on that? That's usually a good one where somebody might be going, what about? Okay. And I'm happy to take questions as we go along, although we left plenty of time at the end for questions. So the next level up from that, so you've got families preparing, you've got blocks preparing, and then in the old days, it used to be this huge jump up to the city. The city was magically going to do a lot of stuff. Well, after our windstorm in West Seattle, when we started talking to it started actually been in Nisqually. How many were here for the 2001 Nisqually earthquake? Yes, right? So that was kind of like the big wake-up call for us. We all rode through that. There was not much damage unless you were right smack downtown. And our neighborhood was at one of the police meetings after that, and we said, wow, we dodged a bullet. What would you guys have done for us? You can see the mentality, right? What would you have done for us? And they're like, ha, ha, ha. They have a huge job. I mean, they have to do public safety across the city. They're going to be in response mode, just like in Christchurch, New Zealand, where the downtown was completely pancaked and the outer areas, they had damage. All the first responders went to that cathedral and that business zone to help recover people. And so the neighborhoods were left without any support because everybody had been pulled to the priority areas. And that's what he explained to us, is that's how it's going to be. You cannot think that police cars are going to wander around in neighborhoods going, what do you need? You community leaders are the important people in this equation. You know your neighbors, you know your business districts, you know your streets, you know where the close hospitals are. Help each other. And that was a big wake-up call. I mean, we sort of went, yeah, he's telling the truth, but oh my Lord, what a lift. You know, how that's going to be really hard. So multiple neighborhoods across the city were hearing the same thing after Nisqually. And that power outage in West Seattle helped crystallize the main thing people need is information. So where can I go? Which hospital's open? In West Seattle, is there a bridge I can get across to get to the hospitals, or am I going to go to Burien? So information was kind of like the big, if everybody's taking care of themselves and they've got food and water and they're helping with their first immediate needs at their neighbor level, then we can provide that community component. That is, we've gone down the street of the business district and found out what stores are planning to reopen. And we'll write on our whiteboard, Thriftway is going to open at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Bring cash because that's the only way we're going to be able to buy stuff out of that store. So that was how hubs came to be, is at that community level. And we call it Hubs Without Borders because people will go, well, how big is your hub area? I live in a area that is flat, a hill, and then there's another hub over here. So I can tell you the people here are going to go to that hub, not my hub. So it doesn't matter where, if you draw a line, you're going to help the people who are in the area with you. In West Seattle, where I'm at, it means I could have busloads of students out for a field trip in Lincoln Park. I could have tourists. I could have a metro bus on its way from Vashon Island with me. Those are all my people now. Here on First Hill, you're going to have people visiting their parents in the hospital. You're going to have people coming to the hospital worried about their patients who are in there. You're going to have people who stuck with you who were here just for a clinic visit, but they live someplace else. So the adaptability of Hub is, it doesn't matter where you come from. We're here. We got caught all together. We're going to help each other. There was I can't say it, but Come From Away. Yes. That's playing at the Fifth Avenue. Seattle rep, yeah, my senior moment. And all the hub captains have been invited to go. That Come From Away is the story of what happened on 9/11 when all airplanes were grounded and the only place some planes could land was in Canada, in a town called Gander. And so this town of Gander had like 15 airplanes descend on them with all their people. And everybody's like, nobody knows what's going on, but they just know they're on the ground and night's coming on. So what are you going to do with them? So it's how the town pulled together to help. And we just go, that's what people do in a disaster. We'll talk about that a little bit more. So we would organize people to help each other. We'd send people out to find out what stores are open. The organizing the volunteers so that we can share resources effectively. And the hub itself is a group of volunteers, and all we've really thought about ahead of time, not really all, we practice a lot, but it's really how we can most effectively help. And I'll cover that a little bit later. So the last part of the pyramid is the city itself. And the city, I will say, has got plans up the gazoo. I mean, they do spend a lot of time walking through what are our hazards, what are our risks, what are the departments postured to do to respond. They understand at the Office of Emergency Management, each department comes in and says, this is my response plan for this kind of threat. And they cycle through that all year long. So we just had the presentation on winter weather, and all the departments talked about what's going to happen in the first hours, days, what their backup plans are, what their staffing plans are. And we go through that on earthquake. There is a map that we actually use that was produced by Seattle Department of Neighborhoods, and it is kind of a universal map. It shows in green all the streets they're going to snow plow, both lanes, arterials in all directions. And that's also, those green routes are also the first ones they're going to clean of debris should there be an earthquake. So we have those maps and we can look at them and go, send people on the green routes to get to the hospitals because they're not clearing the rubble off the non-arterial streets. So working together with them and understanding their plans is really important. Their other job is to request additional resources. So if in a major power storm, they have mutual aid agreements signed already with neighboring departments. Like if we get hit by a bad windstorm, we can call Oregon in and say, please send up your power crews. And then they also escalate up to what may remain of FEMA. So we're all worried about that one. So we're really, really, really important. This pyramid is really important before you have to get to request resources. So in the city, typically, there's over 800,000 now. Last census was just broke the 800,000 barrier. Plus, given the season, we have tourists. Plus, given what's going on with schools, you have people moving all over the city, not just people sleeping in beds at night. At any given time, there are 200 firefighters, not police, but firefighters and EMTs. So you do the math, and that's one EMT for 4,000 people. So you realize the impracticality of that. And their primary job in a fire, because the fire department's primary job is not to go fix broken bones on the street, it is to go fight fires. And when you fight fires, you have to have EMTs with the firefighters. So if we have a lot of fires like San Francisco did, your medical people are going to be making sure the firefighters are being safe and can get through that. The other component about firefighters and police is very few of them live in Seattle. So at the end of a shift, at the end of let's call it an 8-hour shift, but at the end of a shift where now you are making more mistakes than doing things correctly, you have to have turnover of personnel. And if the people who live in Woodinville can't get into Seattle, then the next shift is going to be diminish. So it all speaks to the more resilient we are as people, as neighbors, as a community, the more we can coast through it until the city's resources kick in and the additional resources are brought in. Questions about that? So talking about where you are, because I live in West Seattle, it's not like this. You are going to be on the worst camping trip you've ever been on if we have an earthquake. And that's really the way to look at it. How many have camped? I should have asked it reversed. These days, how many have not camped? Yeah, I mean, you ask that in a different generational audience, and you'll get a lot of people whose parents never took them camping. So they're kind of like, "What's she talking about?" We're not going to see good shelters set up for multiple days. The city is going to have to take a few days to set up its very first shelter with the Red Cross. That just, when they have fires, that happens because that's just sort of business as usual. If we have a major earthquake, they have the same problems. Where are our staff? Did the buildings we want to use get destroyed? So it's going to take a few days for them to walk through that. So basically, plan on camping in your unit, right? And that means no power, no running water, none of those things that we get used to, no communications, and you will only have what you have because you don't even have grocery. I didn't even think, I know where the nearest grocery store is here. Where is it? Okay, that's not too bad, yeah. But they're not going to reopen right away. So you're going to go multiple days with whatever you've got in your unit. And if your pipes, and it isn't even your pipes, if the pipeline from the Cedar watershed breaks, we're all out of water, right? There is no water. So your pipes may be fine, Seattle's may be fine, but that liquefaction zone that they weren't aware of in Renton that it runs through, that might be our weak point. And we only have 2 sources of water coming from the 2 different watersheds. So those pipes have got to make it through. If you don't have anything and you manage to score it or a supply system has been set up, you're going to be carrying that up and down those stairs. So be aware of that. That water is heavy. Just making sure you know. And you don't want to use the lights that are fire causers. You're going to want to have lots of batteries and flashlights. Please do not light candles. I hope you've banned candles in units at this point, right? And then the thing we don't like to talk about is if you don't have water, that means your toilets don't flush. And that means, like camping, you have to make decisions. Am I going to get up out of the tent at 2 a.m. and go, or what am I going to do, right? So we talk, and your public safety committee will talk about 2-bucket toilet systems and how do we dispose of that and how do we get it up and down the stairs. So that's what I mean by you'll carry down the stairs the not fun stuff, But what we realize is we are social creatures. We truly are. And after a disaster, the best comes out in everybody. Most people, we study the after actions of earthquakes and disasters and people who've interviewed the survivors, and they say, I came through okay. I suddenly wasn't worried about myself anymore because even though my house was destroyed, I was okay. My family's okay. What can I do to help? That kicks in, And so for those who are not as lucky, who are impacted or have lost someone or realize they can't go back in their house and that has thrown them completely off, you'll have people in shock, and we have people who have made it through and can help. So that's that, using the talents that show up at a hub and going, can you help other people, or are you here needing help? So I'm going to go over what we do, what Jackie and her team that she's in the middle of building will do. Note, everybody, that I will be asking if you're interested in joining her team. So what we do is we start with gathering and sharing information. What stores are open? Where are shelters open up? What do we know that is useful to the people in the community? The second thing we do is we match, and I've got a couple of pictures that will show you this. We match somebody who comes up and says, I've got children's diapers. I've got adult diapers. And we go, great, fill out this form, and we'll wait and see if somebody comes and needs that stuff. So we don't accept donations because that's a huge management problem. We just match the people who are offering or need. The third thing we do is organize those volunteers. You have to, if you're going to give somebody something to do, you got to make sure that you send them out safely and that they've come back. Hey, Boy Scouts, go check out that landslide. Wow, we never heard from the Boy Scouts again. That's not good. So managing the volunteers and making sure we understand what people need and we find people with skills. And it is amazing. If I was to hand out our skills inventory list to you, you'd be checking like crazy. And people are sitting there going, I don't have any skills. What do you mean? I was just a school teacher. I'm going to pick that as example. Well, I could teach, but the disaster is not teaching. You work with people. You work with children. You know how to calm children down. Those are big things in a disaster because the parents are going to be upset. Children are going to be not able to go back to school. What do we do with them? So everybody's got these interesting skill sets that we're going to need. My other one's my mom. She's like, I just did like office work, that's nothing. And I go, okay, you're a fantastic cook, right? On day 4, we're going to be pulling stuff out of our defrosted refrigerators and cooking it because cooked food lasts longer. So we need someone who can cook. And you do office stuff, so you were organizing, so you could help write the information and keep that organized. She's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So that's what we do. We have people come in and we go, what can you do? Here's all the things we're thinking we're going to need. Match us up. And then the last thing we do is as many times as I go out and talk about preparedness to people, they go home and they find a reason not to do it. Just forgot, didn't do it. Many are good reasons, didn't have the money, don't have the space. So we know people are not necessarily going to be fully prepared, but maybe they put water aside and they just hadn't changed it and they're a little worried and they go, how do I make sure there's a boil water alert on? How do I make sure that my water is good? So we've created posters so that after the disaster, we can have people go, oh yeah, that's how many drops of bleach it takes to purify your water. Oh yeah, that's how you build a 2-bucket system. And then we have a book where we've kind of printed the internet off on all sorts of other camping and survival information that might be useful in a disaster. So we call it on the job education. Here we are, we're trying to survive. And that's the fourth element that we do. We talk about whether we have a medical component or not. We have not settled on that. We're still working with Seattle Fire Department on what the best recommendation is. But this is a picture of what they look like. So truly, if you were to come up to the hub, and we are not professionals, we are your neighbors. So my handwriting is not perfect, but it's going to look like this. It's going to say, here's what we're hearing from neighbors who walked down and looked around our community. Here's what we're hearing from our nearby hubs. I'm going to depend on the Pigeon Point hub to tell me if the West Seattle Bridge is down, because they can walk and go, oh, yep, nope, it's down. And then I can put that up, and then we all know we're going to South Park or we're going to Burien. So, and then the third place we hear from is we work with the ham radio group, volunteers of the city of Seattle, called the Auxiliary Communication Service, and they will get on the air and start transmitting messages out from the city. Because not everybody's got one of those crank radios, and often Como or Cairo, the emergency stations, will be going, this is what's going on in Kitsap, and I'm going, I need to know what's going on in Morgan. And so the regional stations may not give me the information I know, but Seattle will give us the information we need to know. So they are committed to making sure the information gets out so all the hubs, anybody listening to the radio system knows which hospitals have opened, where the shelters are, the key things that affect the city. And then the connecting supplies, we have forms. That's how we do it. And you just line them up and you go, here's all the food requests and here's all the offers and here's all the requests. And we haven't quite matched the one for the baby food yet, but we're waiting for that. And then we put the neighbor's name and how they are to be contacted, grab the sheet of paper off who needs the baby food and take your baby food over there, right? Very simple analog systems. The connecting skills, we do have not spreadsheets, but forms where we keep track of folks and what their skills are. And then the knowledge to get through, that's the example of one of the posters there, large size posters that people can come up. And I saw some people taking pictures. That's what you would do. You may not be able to use your phone to communicate, but you can take pictures of the information board and the posters and go back to your floor, your block, your wherever, and share it with your neighbors. So not everybody has to come to the hub if they all need to know how to build a toilet. Just have one person go up there. So that really is kind of what we're talking about as the hub doing. So you, in your building, and this is why Bill has us, you guys are encouraged to prepare for yourselves. You have the the safety committee who takes care of thinking about the building as a whole. You have emergency volunteers who are those point people for your floors. So they're the ones who are kind of doing that. You know, how are we doing? What's our health of a floor? What's our check-in? And if you can do that, then you are a really robust, put together group that then can send first volunteers over to help at the hub and then information over. What do you need? What do you have that you're willing to share? So those are the things you can talk about it ahead of time, but you really end up working it in the time of disaster because he may say, yeah, we've got lots of freezer in there on backup generator. I'm just pretending, but lots of freezers on backup generator and the backup generator didn't work, right? So now we're going to use your food to cook and feed everybody backwards, right? So that's what you do at the time of the disaster. You kind of figure it out. It's called MacGyvering. All those who grew up on the old MacGyver shows. You just MacGyver it. And our mantra is be flexible. You can say we're going to set up these 4 stations, but if you don't have enough staff, which are the 3 most important ones to set up? Just MacGyver it when it happens. So I'm going to have Jackie come up. Well, let's do. So what do you want to do? Do you want me to take general questions first, or do you want to come up and add on about your hub? Okay. Q&A, and Bill's got a microphone, and you can ask. It's free to ask Bill questions. Oh, also another microphone on this side. So questions. 2 in the back. Oop.
Not necessarily a question, but a while back, I bought the first aid kit, the big one that has the radio power, hand-powered radio. I guess I need to get it out and check the batteries, but it was a really good investment with lots of things in there for an emergency.
Yes. And I will say, if you really want to find out what it's like, pretend your batteries are dead and go crank that thing and see how sore your arm is. I swear, you can't believe how hard those are to crank for how long just to get 15 minutes of news. It's a good experiment. Now, there was one in the back, and then Bill, another one in the back there.
You really caught my attention when you were talking about walking and not to talk about stuff down the stairs. So is there a citywide plan for sanitation? And is there a hub responsibility for sanitation beyond the specific homes or apartments or whatever?
What a great question. Because we have met with the Seattle Public Utilities and we said, what's your plan? And their plan was like a little more vague than we were happy with. So we worked with them. One of the things in our book is the instructions that they want us to put out. So I'll do single family because I'm most familiar with that. Take your waste, and the 2-bucket system tells, you tie it off after it gets to, don't pick it up where it'll break on you, right? Change it out before it gets that heavy. Put it in a container that rodents and animals can't get into. Mark it human waste and hold until SPU can start, the rubble has been cleared from the streets and they can get their trucks out. The first thing they will pick up is human waste. Then they will come back for garbage because human waste is what spreads disease. So we have that. And then there's another poster that is, well, I got debris, in single family, I got debris. What do I do with it? Well, they would prefer if you would sort it out just like we do for landfills. Here's the compostable sort of stuff. And this is debris. This is not your regular garbage, but this is wood type things. These are my TV appliances that got destroyed. You see a lot of pictures after hurricanes with the piles of stuff out in the street. Well, if you sort that out for them ahead of time, it's easier for them to get reimbursed from FEMA because FEMA has very strict requirements about how that stuff gets disposed of. So we put that out and say, organize your garbage like this, and whenever they come around to pick it up. And now I drove through Louisiana 2 years after a hurricane and stuff was still out, but that was in the country, in a dense environment, I'm not sure.
Just a clarification, when you're talking about the 2-bucket system, you're not really talking about buckets, right? Are you? Are you
I am seriously talking about
plastic bags, or what do you?
Buckets, we talk about, we call it the 2-bucket system because it is pee in one bucket, poop in another bucket. Because Liquids, you can just spread on the ground. They are not what carry the pathogens. The poop is the bad one. That's why, and you don't want to have it mixed. Although us women, I'll go, oh, are you serious? You don't want to have it mixed because then you got water and hard stuff sloshing around in the same bag. So you try and put your solids in one bag, seal that up, and get rid of it on, into that sealed container. So the other alternative is you can have a bucket for pee, but you can line your defunct toilet with a baggie, right? A grocery or a garbage bag, and use it the same way. But you got to sit on something. I don't know about your leg strength, but I got to sit. Sorry. So the buckets you can fit with a pool noodle. And that's actually one of the steps of the instruction. Find something to cushion it because that will cut you. Sorry, too much detail.
Our administration every 5 years offers us water, and they ask us to get, is it 2 weeks worth of drinking water? And I've been saving the old water, marking the dates just for washing up or whatever. And I assume that eventually you might have to even drink that. But I think it's a great service that they give us.
That is
in
fantastic
doing
to
that.
hear.
And I don't know how many residents take advantage of it, but it is good, important to have.
Yeah, that solves the little red hen problem, right? I collected, and who am I sharing with? And I'm going, if you have your building offering you, they ought to make you take it, right? They really should.
Very basic question. You talked about food. It lasts longer if it's cooked, but if we don't have electricity, how are we going to cook our food?
Barbecues.
We don't.
And
we
if the
can't.
natural gas makes it through. Well,
We
your
don't have those,
building,
yeah.
again, your building doesn't have barbecues,
No, and we
but
don't have
maybe
natural-
someone at the hub has said, we know where the barbecues are. Who said we do? Do you have a patio? Ooh, mark her name down.
Yeah, we're all electric in terms of cooking here.
Yeah. Other questions? Then I'll turn it over to Jackie, and she'll talk a little bit about her efforts in building the First Hill Hub.
Hello, everyone. No problem. Hi. That was a lot of information. So, it's a lot of information, but we do what we can. We break it down little by little. And so the First Hill Emergency Hub will be nearby, across the street on Boren at First Hill Park. So it's a nice, calm Wednesday morning. We just got all this information. It feels perhaps a little overwhelming. Well, imagine what happens when there is an actual disaster. That level of overwhelm is not the type of overwhelm you have on a nice, calm Wednesday morning. So one of the greatest benefits of having an emergency hub is that it provides the emotional relief and comfort of someone being calm, someone being there, and just existing to take people's questions. Because this is a lot. This is a lot to think about. And we start building up our community this way. I think about how Horizon House is already a pretty established community. But if you think about the larger First Hill environment, there's so many people in and out for their jobs. There are many people in tech, and they just want to be inside of their units in their own buildings. So the greatest benefit of the emergency hub is that it'll be run by volunteers who have been building community and are ready to receive folks who haven't been. So we can knit people together and weave people together with their needs and their questions, and even just be there if folks wander out of their homes having to socialize with other people for what might be one of the first times. So we will be at the First Hill Park across the street, across Boren. And what we need to do is we need to get a box with some of our supplies, like tables and a whiteboard, so that we can start organizing folks and lining people up with their requests and the things that they have available. And we need some more volunteers. Right now we have, including myself, we have 3 people from First Hill who are interested. Well, we also have Bill. And we will be meeting monthly on Zoom the 3rd Thursday of the month. And yeah, what would be great is if, and this is the goal that I would love to achieve, is for in the spring running a drill. So hubs will run drills. And that's a great way for all the hubs to come together and practice all of their skills that they've been learning. So essentially, it's a practice activation. And here comes Cindy. No?
No, because you're doing fantastic.
Great.
Other than, I forgot to. That's how you'll contact Jackie if you're interested.
Yes. So contact me at my email address or the First Hill Emergency Hub email address. And yeah, we need folks with all kinds of skills. I would love to have contact with someone who wants to write a monthly newsletter even. So yeah, we would love to run a hub drill. The great thing about hub volunteers is that these are very can-do people. And I've been to different hubs and their meetings. I've been to different events, and everyone is very eager and happy to practice their skills and refine them. So there is the North Capitol Hill hub, and there's another hub on Capitol Hill at Cal Anderson Park. And they want to form an alliance, which is great, because when we have these collectives, we can participate in hubs together. So we have the support of practiced hub volunteers who are willing and ready and wanting and have the interest to run a hub drill. So this would be a practice activation of what does a hub look like when it happens. And that's really great because it might seem a little abstract. You get all these information, the information with the diagram. But when there is a role play of a set up hub, people realize, oh, I could do this. I could receive the people coming in and I could direct them to the different tents. I could do that. I can actually write down on these little slips of paper who matches with what needs and who has whatever resources. So, yeah, it's a really tangible way to be able to understand what a hub is because, you get fire hosed with a lot of this information. You're like, oh my God, in a bucket. So, this is a way to sort of break it down and make it feel a little more user friendly. And it has that really good feeling of being in community, and it feels more like a fair rather than a disaster, and it doesn't feel as doomy when you receive all this information and you're thinking about like, my God, how many batteries do I need? So, yeah, I hope that feels supportive for you and interesting in terms of wanting to be a part of these activations. The other thing I'll also add really quick is that a lot of these volunteers are people who are retirees because folks with more time on their hands want to be a part of this. And so I don't see too many folks who are of my peer group. I'll just put it that way. So you will be in good company meeting other folks from other hubs. So yeah, there aren't a lot of young whippersnappers, although I am middle-aged, so I don't consider myself one. Perhaps I read as one to you. So yeah, I would just really like to encourage you to come and join us, come join our hub. And if not joining our hub, at least coming to a hub drill, seeing what that is like. And yeah, thank you for your time.
So after the,
Cal Anderson, the closest hub for us.
No, that's what we're saying. She will be the closest in the First Hill Park. University and Minor. Yeah. Yeah, it's like 3 blocks. So please talk with Jackie after if you're interested in being on her team, and we'll make sure Bill announces the drill that, or her team may go to other hubs to practice too, but the first one we have here, we'll let you know, because the other thing we also need is people who come up, and we call them citizen actors. And we give you that little script that says, can I get to Bellevue? And you test the hub out, right? And the greeter says, well, let's have you go over to where the maps are and see if the bridge to Bellevue is up, So we need citizen actors to help us practice our hubs. So that's the other way you can get involved. But we're definitely looking for good team members. Bill?
Question. When you presented to the safety committee, I was really surprised to learn, how much I really would have to put into being prepared, all the different items and, everything that goes into being prepared to survive on our own for 2 weeks-ish. But
at least,
I wonder if you could flesh that out just a little bit. You talked about water and a little bit about food, but maybe some other things that.
Well, so in my backpack, I have for you. I don't hand these out at the beginning because then everybody is looking at it, not listening. Hang on. Okay, well, I'll get them all out in a minute. So I brought for you the preparedness material that the Office of Emergency Management puts out. So the first page, this is what he's talking about. All the things that you can think about and put in a pack. And it's got links to, those lists. And the second part of it is your plan. What if you are out shopping and your husband's at home and the earthquake happens, what's your plan? Where will you reunify? How will you deal with your children in Redmond, and especially in populations where we have parents whose children are in school. So the family plan is what you do after. Your question about all the things you have to do, the Cindy Barker take on it is food, water, medications, some first aid supplies. And if you have to wear the same shirt for 2 weeks, I don't care. I have so many people who go, oh my God, the list is endless. I can't do that. And I'm going like, go to bed when it gets dark and get up when it's light if you don't have batteries. You'll live, right? You won't live without food and water and your medications. So don't look at the list as you got to do it all. Look at the list and you go, oh, how funny. They have a thing on there about candy. Have something in there that makes you happy. That's the one extra thing I'm going to put in. But people go, oh, I can't spend that money. I don't have that space. Think about what it's going to be like to camp for 2 weeks and then build your kit.
And just to point out one more thing, I think many residents have the idea that Horizon House is going to take care of them through a long disaster. And I think the reality of that is probably not. We just don't have the resources to do that. So it's really incumbent upon each resident to take care of themselves and be ready themselves. Horizon House maybe offer some things, maybe water, some food, but it's we just need to be prepared ourselves.
And this is where your safety committee works with your staff, because we have seen in disaster after disaster, half the staff of a nursing home will leave. They have families, they have kids, they're stressed out, they want to get home, right? Disasters turn off that time clock, or the next shift may not be able to get in. So no matter what, you're going to be operating on limited staff. So Jackie will hand them out. I'm pretty sure I got enough to get all the way through, and I can always give Bill another stack later. There's a question back there.
Maybe, okay, maybe you covered this when I wasn't here, but the hub that is planned for being, I mean, our particular one for First Hill Park, it rains around here. You can't guarantee that the earthquake will be on a clear summer day. Are they planning to have tents for different cover things so that all of these bulletin boards with pieces of paper hanging on them
So
will be?
I have.
You wander around among places.
Yes, all of and I should have. This is more around you guys being prepared and thinking about it, and we can come back and show you how a hub operates. If she gets a big enough box, we usually have 4 canopies in there, one for each of those stations, because we totally believe, The other thing you can do is you can put tarps between canopies. In my single family neighborhood, I ended up with a very small box, and I got 1 canopy. And my plan is, worked out with the Beverage Place pub next door to me, is that if his building is still standing after the first day or 2 of aftershocks, I get to break his window and we get to go inside. Seriously. So, each of us kind of has that, it's going to be miserable. One of our hubs is like, he's newer, right? So I've been in drills where it's rained during our drill. And he's like, we never practice in the winter. I'm going to set up and do a demonstration hub on December 7th at my community Christmas party, at their community center. He's going to set his hub outside. And I'm like, you go, man. And you tell us how long it took. One year we did it in April and it wasn't raining, but it was a cold April day. Our feet were frozen. I mean, you totally learn these different things getting out and doing this in the weather. There was a question right next to her. Did you have a question, ma'am? Okay. Other questions? Okay. And I am going to say, we are not part of the city. I forgot to say that because I know it. We are just all volunteers. This has been a grassroots organization from its beginning. We just work with the city so that we know what they plan to do so we can do the best job we can do.
I worked in an office building in downtown Seattle for about 15 years. One of the suggestions, not quite a requirement, but one of the suggestions was to have at our office, at our desk, a backpack or a bag that included a really good sturdy pair of shoes because earthquake cause broken glass, and often, especially in the summertime, you're wearing sandals or things like that. So it was food, water, and a change of clothes and a pair of good solid shoes that you could walk around in glass.
That's perfect. And a map. We have so many people who can't, I almost can't navigate without Google anymore. But that map that will tell you what road to take to get to which bridge you've just found out that you never use, but it's the only one that's open. Yes, excellent suggestion. All right. We have 5 minutes left, so last call for questions. Jackie, did anything else you wanted to add? And you have to use the mic.
It was really lovely for you to spend your Wednesday morning with us. Really looking forward to seeing some of you. Hope to have a hub drill for First Hill Park up and running in the spring and would love to see you there. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill, for having us.
You're welcome. Just a couple of things. I have all this information, and so and as does the other members of the safety committee. So if at any time you want to consider to volunteer or whatnot, or want more information, just contact one of us. Okay. And secondly, we have, this has been videotaped, so it will be available on our YouTube website, I think, within a few days. And so encourage, I know there's a lot of emergency volunteers here, so, encourage people on your floor to take a look at that. This is really, really great information. Cindy. Thank you all.